Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the dojo. Today's featured show, Peacemaker, Season 2.
Yeah, Peacemaker, Season 2, Episode 8, season finale. Welcome back to the dojo. I'm Ryu. That's Age, and we're back for more Peacemaker. And hey, this is like super double length. It's almost an hour. We talked about that last week or a couple days ago. We're wrapping this up a little early because we're starting our new set of shows this week, and well, there's some even drama going on with One Punch Man, and we're gonna have to talk about that for a little bit when we get to that show. But yeah, we figured this was going to probably be like near an hour-long finale, something like that, and it's like 57 minutes, so it's pretty close to that. So we figured we need to get this done because this is going to take up a reasonable amount of time. So we found some time to get this done during the week. If there's any weird edits, it's because I had to get up and deal with something. But yeah, especially since this is a little bit longer, but this is our best opportunity outside of the, ESPN app constantly going off about trivial bullshit that nobody asks for. But anyway, as for this, last time we had, Judo Master doing things, being the theme of last time's episode was being reasonable. What was up with that? That's like the most fiction thing you can do. Nobody's reasonable. Who the hell is reasonable anymore? That's crazy. That's incredibly fiction. So, Keith is probably still alive. All the stuff we talked about last time, Rick Flag Sr. is probably going to screw something up and start an interdimensional incident. Madness. It should be interesting. And with, probably about 54 minutes of actual runtime, that's a good amount of time. That's almost like 2 full extra episodes. That's like a whole extra episode piled in there. So there's all kinds of stuff on the board. It'll be interesting to see what they do for pretty much everything we've talked about. Probably won't get any of the Eagle-y backstory stuff. Just any kind of like lore on him, but who knows. But anything else, really. Justice Gang shenanigans, the interdimensional stuff has to happen. You know what I mean? Keith survived. They're not just going to leave that alone. I don't know what else they could really do. DC stuff that I probably don't know. You know what I mean? DC stuff that we're probably going to have to look up for context, which is totally fine. And also comedy. There's probably going to be comedy. So, either way, I'm excited to get into this, and we're probably going to have a lot to talk about afterwards. So, let's get going here. So, people on Patreon will get the timer going here in a second for you guys, and on the other side of the edit for you guys on YouTube, you will see the discussion and always. So, here goes something. Well, alrighty then. I didn't think I'd be making a Ruby reference of all things today, or like Candyland, or anything of the sort. I'll have Victoria throw up one of the shots of the Ever After from Ruby. Don't know how much fandom crossover there is, but man, this just looks like a freaking live action shot of what was part of the Ever After in the most recent season of Ruby. But,
Ruby did actually have a comic crossover. I just don't know if it was DC or Marvel.
It was DC. They did Superman and Green Lantern stuff. We still haven't watched that, actually. Maybe we should do that at some point. It was on the list, and then it just kind of got buried. But yeah, Ruby did do a crossover with DC, and it was not very well received. Because apparently they split it, like half in the Ruby verse, half in the DC verse. It got weird or something. But again, we'll have to judge that for ourselves. But yeah, that's exactly what this looked like. And I was like, is James Gunn making a Ruby reference? What's happening here? Were they going to have the Cheshire Cat show up or what? But that wasn't the case. It would have been kind of hilarious and really weird pull, and would have led credence to having a bunch of random anime just do the Peacemaker OP just as like a April Fool's joke. I kind of really want that to happen. Just, maybe I'll do some edits of my own and figure out a way to do that. But
that's basically just turned into a full-on meme format right now. It's just people freaking editing in the Peacemaker intro after scenes and stuff to make it fit.
Yeah. So either way, this was in fact that imp dimension. A lot of things came together in this episode, but, excuse me, a lot of things were left open-ended. Not unlike what the MCU is doing with like stuff like Loki and whatnot. So, yeah, there's some stuff to break down here. But either way, this was that imp dimension that alternate Augie was talking about. I believe he said it was one of the doors that was unlocked. And, well...
Yeah, it was friggin' Peacemaker 2 just randomly stumbled in here and let a bunch of the imps out at one point.
Yep. And, well, as we all saw, they can exist outside their universe, no problem, because they were rolling around in the QCE, so... Yeah, no problem. We lost a lot of the drones in this one. And I think Bordeaux finally realized that she was just a drone. Or a pawn. Whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? Flag had his own, like, task force, of... white-collar people.
It wasn't his task force, it was Luther's task force.
Well, yeah, it was Luther's task force. They had to get those people to do something else. It was pretty much half the people that were in the Superman movie. Luther's, like, freaking, whatever you want to call that. Hub? I don't know. Command center? Whatever. But either way, they showed off a couple of the other open doors, unlocked doors in this. What was it? It was like, just one was like out in space. So
yeah, one was literally just a door to a black hole.
Yeah, black hole, basically, something like that, or just space, whatever. Then obviously they found, I keep wanting to say sanctuary, but that's not what they called it. It was
Salvation.
Salvation. So that one, based on what we got at the end there, probably still reasonably hostile or prehistoric, even. So we don't know what's going on with that place.
Presumably, yeah, it's a just like unpopulated world that someone who had a door traveled to, and then like went and died, and so their door got left open there.
Right. So we don't know what the deal is with that. What other random ones that we saw was like very Rick and Morty. If you guys ever saw any episodes of Rick and Morty with that like planet that had the screaming sun, that one door they opened with like those spider things with the skeletal heads that were screaming. That was something.
I don't know for sure, but that might have been the dimension that Wolverine gets trapped in that frickin' one really frickin' dark Wolverine comic. I can't remember the frickin' name of it.
It's That'd the be one kind of another weird crossover thing, though. You know what I mean? But yeah, I don't know. So
like it wouldn't be because Wolverine is Marvel, but at the same time, it looked very similar to a thing.
Yeah. So, just all the random just like things that they did for that was pretty solid. Obviously, I gotta appreciate Judo Master still wearing his costume
under the hazmat.
Under the hazmat, which, I mean, at the end of the day, I think the hazmats were more constricting than helpful. You know what I mean?
Oh, well, I mean, the hazmat's the reason only one person got their face eaten off by imps.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, they would have been able to go immediately face, and
also, it's the reason why no one. It's the reason why forgetting no one immediately had like all the air sucked out of their lungs when they got sucked into space.
Yeah, that would have definitely killed them. So reasonable precautions were made, but yeah. Either way, there was a lot of like random character development stuff like that in this. Let's be real, Adrian has at least $100 million in that freaking room, bare minimum.
Yeah.
Okay, he has seed money. He's good. They could run that company for probably a solid decade if they don't F up too much. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yeah, plus Bordeaux has a lot of connections, even if she burnt bridges with Rick Flag Sr.
Right. Which, well, she did sleep with him, and then had that like, well, I guess I've done this face. So this episode was a lot of montage, and I did see a lot, not a lot, but some complaining because I wasn't really looking for like trying to spoil what was happening, but I just happened to cross it in the last week or so here since the last episode dropped, and I think what a lot of people probably don't understand about this is this was never going to be a conclusive ending to anything. That's what people had a problem with, like Arcane. It's like this was an origin story for a couple characters, not the entirety of League of Legends lore. You know what I mean? In this case, this is just the Peacemaker stuff going on and what potentially can branch off of it or interconnect into it like a Lego set. You know what I mean? So this being that open-ended to me means they're probably going to have some sort of movie where everything they set up with wanting to throw the metahumans onto Salvation, you know, since it's Luthor adjacent, Superman will probably get tossed in there along with several others, and then they're probably just gonna derp into Peacemaker being like freaking Tom Hanks in Castaway. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like they're setting up for a Justice Gang movie.
Yeah.
Because they put so much emphasis on setting them up as a thing. And then now we have Checkmate being established and Rick Flag going Luther Jr., basically.
Yeah.
When things like Mr. Terrific were essential to freaking beating Luther in the first place.
Yep.
But also because looking into Checkmate a bit more, Mr. Terrific is also a former member at one point or another in the comics.
Got it.
There's actually a lot of history on Checkmate. As well as I was looking at it, Bordeaux's been around for 25 years at this point.
Yeah.
She's actually a much more major character than I initially thought when I just quickly glanced through stuff at the beginning of the season.
Right. So, yeah, it's definitely doing the interconnectivity, overall arcing, DCU stuff. You know what I mean? Each one of these things, you can't have something attached to something else and then just disconnect it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna have continuity questions, and I guess maybe to that end, the retcon they did, like by putting, Mr. Terrific, Guy Gardner, Hawkgirl in like the flashback, callback to the previous season. Maybe that's just them saying, okay, no, Peacemaker is DCU now, so they're just pretend that they were there instead. That was them like saying, overwriting how the last season ended and adding that, the Guy Gardner joke and shit like that. So,
yeah, they definitely just seem like they're building towards the Justice Gang being more important, especially for like the Peacemaker side of things and what they're building up in this with the dimensional shenanigans.
Yep. So the only other like super over the moon theory could be like this one is a slightly different dimension than the original season or something, but that's probably grasping at some serious straws. You know what I mean? They probably looked at the Superman movie and were like, no, we're just making Peacemaker part of this and doing Justice Gang instead of Justice League. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm definitely more leaning far toward that as opposed to just, oh, it's completely different because, this Peacemaker doesn't have the butterfly anymore or whatever. It's like they still referred to, Project Butterfly and all that stuff. So all that stuff still happened. Whatever happened with the butterfly guy, who knows? Does it really matter? Not really. I mean, he was like
once again,
the last of his kind potentially. So
yeah, it's very easy to just assume that the butterfly leader starved, because that was like the whole thing. Is once the cow was destroyed, they no longer had any way of creating food. So all they had left was just that little jar of it that Peacemaker had at the end.
Yeah, and this was like 6 months later. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that little jar, even massively rationed out for a small creature like that, that's going to be gone in 6 months. You know what I mean? So, is it important? Not really. So that's probably the easiest thing to assume. But again, Adrian has plenty of seed money. Adebayo got him with the classic, one of the classic just persuasion methods. you got to appreciate it. This definitely had plenty of comedy. But again, they did lose a lot of the pawns and stuff like that, Rick's pawns. But again, they don't care. You know what I mean? That's why Harcourt was thrown back in there, because she's expendable to him. You know what I mean? So
yeah, of what you also they were showing that off for Bordeaux too. Like they established the whole thing of like Harcourt used to be his favorite, and now he doesn't even basically barely recognize her. She's run her course, but like over the course of this whole scene, you start off with Bordeaux up there in the command center with him. Then she like drifts away and is like over at the far end of the command center from him. Then she's down there with Economos throughout most of it, and by the end of it, you have her in there with Harcourt in the door when they go to Salvation.
Yep. So yeah, that was definitely could be lost in the montage, but that was definitely her when they opened the door to Salvation here. So it's kind of interesting how they did all the tie-ins to like all the stuff that was going on with Superman and whatnot. So I would massively bet on just a Justice Gang movie, and one of the, if not the big overarching thing, will be metahumans just disappearing.
Yeah.
And then like the Justice Gang looks into it like, what the hell happened to, I don't know. Maybe they'll start doing villains first. You know what I mean? Like,
well, yeah,
wasn't the Ultra Humanite like in jail and now he's just disappeared and nobody knows where he is? Where's Grodd? Where's this person? Where's Sinestro? Whatever.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's the whole thing that like Rick's proposing here. Like he clearly is following Luthor's footsteps of wanting to get rid of all the metahumans eventually. But the whole thing that like he's proposing here, getting the government behind him on, is the idea of just sending the criminal metahumans, instead of putting them in prisons where they could break out, sending them to another dimension.
Yep. So at a certain point, based on everything they did, because they're just, I think they have to bring them to the like command center to throw them in. But what they said was when they open the door to Salvation, that the door appears not in the same place every time on Salvation.
Yeah, they have. He didn't really clarify if it's just totally randomized or if they have some semblance of control over it. He just stated that they could drop them in a different place every time, so no one knows where the door is going to open up to prepare any sort of ambush or attempt to escape.
Right. So, even let's just say Salvation is Earth-sized, about the same amount of landmass. Even if you have several hundred metahumans, let's be real. You're not going to be able to create a grid big enough to find a door when it's open for 5 seconds and, have an ambush. You'd have to literally get lucky. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It'd be one of those things where it's just like, okay, everybody has a spot 10 miles apart or something, and then one of us gets lucky and then hopefully gets in there, or two of them, create some kind of team in each location. Just be like, well, all we can do is camp this location. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and see what happens.
In that situation, it becomes a thing of, not searching areas and more of just camping out in specific spots and just hoping that since they don't have any way of tracking where the metahumans are, that they just accidentally open a door next to a metahuman.
Yep. So I'm very much in the camp of that's probably what a Justice Gang movie would look like. You know what I mean? And then that's how Peacemaker gets back. And then maybe we get Peacemaker Season 3, or they do like a Justice Gang series or something. You know what I mean? Or Checkmate. Yeah. It might not be Peacemaker anymore. It might just be called Checkmate or something. You know what I mean? So...
yeah, they could transition it into... Like, they do a Justice Gang movie, which during the Justice Gang movie, they managed to like take down Rick Sr. and pull any of the metahumans and Chris that has all been thrown in there out. And then they go on and do a Checkmate series where it's about, Peacemaker and all them just doing a thing as a group. And then that's where like Keith can come back as being like one of the overarching villains of that is Other Dimension Keith.
Yeah. Because that way being non-committal, it also, while obviously John Cena as Peacemaker would probably be one of the forefront characters, it gives more to the rest of the team. You know what I mean? It makes it more of a team dynamic, which, that way they can have episodes without Peacemaker if they have to. That kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which most of the team are new to this primarily. Like they're characters that are like original to this. But Bordeaux is a fairly big deal. Vigilante is kind of a deal. Like he gets involved in stuff here and there. He had his own comic series for a little while. But Abidayo is basically taking Waller's place since the Suicide Squad movie got her arrested.
Yeah.
Well, no, that didn't get arrested. It was the season 1 of Peacemaker got arrested. But either way, she's currently in the DCU. She's currently out of power.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll have to see because, like I said, most of the characters are original to this. It's really only Peacemaker, Vigilante, and Bordeaux that have like established things.
Right.
Even Judo Master, I believe, is a like predominantly just an original character to this.
Yeah, I again know nothing, so it's it'd be unsurprising, but they always make changes and additions and stuff like that. That makes sense. So it makes sense that Judo Master and Flurry would join because while Flurry is kind of weird, they're all weird. He had a sense of justice. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's weird, but he was never really a bad guy, and he was always loyal to Bordeaux, not to Rick.
Yeah. So, well, with his bird blindness and all the other random nonsense that he has going on with it, he had his moments like, when Economos actually booked Peacemaker so that Rick couldn't just kill him. You know what I mean? He had that line of like, hey, no, it's good that you did that. And he wasn't like being sarcastic or anything. He was being dead serious. Like, hey, it's good that you did that because, he would have killed him kind of deal. So as ridiculous of a character as Flurry is, when he's serious, he's very serious. Like Adrian can be serious. So they just have their own, things that make them weird. But most of these characters are like that. So either way, yeah. So again, this episode was more montagey than anything, which is totally fine because it's definitely setting up a movie and a different series. Like that's why James Gunn, I mentioned I think at the beginning of this, maybe in the reaction a little bit too, was he did say that he won't confirm Peacemaker season 3, but he has plans. So once again, to me, that means more than likely money's on Justice Gang movie. That's how we get Peacemaker and the metas back. After like say the first half of the movie is, pick your favorite DC metas that are just disappearing out of prisons or just like, hey, what's going on? Where the hell are all the villains? What's going on here? Like I tossed, this person in and they're now gone. Like nobody's seen them. Like they're just, it's going to be like the classic tumbleweed across the jail yard. It's like, what happened to our prisoners? You know what I mean? So that's what I'm leaning towards, and then it would probably make more sense to just do a series called Checkmate or something. You know what I mean? to more highlight these characters, and then be able to, well, obviously John Cena would still be a major star and stuff like that. Him being like co-producer or whatever he was for this, as long as he can be part of it, and Peacemaker would still obviously be a huge part of it, changing the series name really isn't that big of a deal. Peacemaker was more or less a like an origin story in a way, and then now has established more of the DCU, and then moving forward to more of like a team-based dynamic potentially as a series in the future. So
Judo Master is actually a thing. He's not in very much, but apparently like he originates back in '83. Though the original Judo Master, who this Judo Master is named after, Rip Jagger, was apparently a World War II veteran. Clearly not the same guy.
Yeah, clearly not the same guy.
But of all the things, he was killed by Bane.
He was killed by Bane. Okay.
But yeah, Rip Jagger was never actually a member of Checkmate. His son, Thomas Jagger, was a member of Checkmate.
Right. But I assume that was their nod to that then, because that was his code name. They gave him the code name Rip, right?
Yeah.
That's not his name because they just gave him that code name.
Yeah, I don't think we ever actually got his official name, so this could be Thomas Jagger. It's just he's credited as Rip Jagger because that's what they refer to him as.
Right.
But like I said, I don't think we ever actually get his actual name. I'm pretty sure you're right. It was just his code name.
Yeah, because I was either Flurry or I know last episode Rick says it. Is that your take on it, Rip? You know what I mean? But he's still going to use his code name. He's not going to call him by his freaking first name. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, full montage. And we just kind of, as a fan base for this, kind of have to take it as that, as it's leading into something bigger and better potentially. Like, again, probably a Justice Gang movie involving throwing villain metas into Salvation. And then that's how we get Peacemaker back and potentially get like a Checkmate series or something. So that's what this was setting up, more than likely. You know what I mean? And that's why James Gunn is non-committal on Peacemaker Season 3, because they probably want to call it Checkmate or something else.
Yeah, I imagine
after they do the movie.
Whether it's Checkmate or not, I imagine it is going to be a case of they want to do a movie and then do a new series that just has Peacemaker in it, but it's not Peacemaker, the series.
Right. So, and I'm totally fine with that. That's, stuff has to flow naturally and stuff like that. And in a series that has all these characters in it, you're probably going to highlight more of them, like Bordeaux, that kind of thing. Whoever might get added to it like that. So you kind of have to disassociate from the main brand name of Peacemaker being like the focal point to, no, this is Checkmate, or like say Justice League, the TV cartoon, it wasn't just about Superman. You know what I mean? They had a Superman animated series, or the Batman animated series, or Batman Beyond, whatever they had. But when it was more team oriented, it was the Justice League. You know what I mean? Justice League Unlimited, whatever. You know what I mean? Teen Titans, whatever it is. It's always going to be like the team name. So
we didn't get really any of Bordeaux's actual backstory in this. So we don't know how much of it's going to be canon to this universe. But we just had the whole thing of like she was an agent and then she was like in a plane crash or something like that and had to get cybernetic surgery.
Yep.
But in the comics, where she actually, like I said, is actually a fairly big deal. Before she becomes a cyborg, she's actually trained by Batman. And is one of the few non-metas who actually knows Batman's true identity as Bruce Wayne.
Got it. So yeah, there's a lot of dots that are going to be connected. You know what I mean? This is kind of like phase one of what they were doing with MCU. You know what I mean? And DC has tried to kickstart this multiple times to try to win the DC versus Marvel war. And again, as most people know that are into this stuff, and if you don't, but DC fails miserably at the hero stuff. Just historically in the live action stuff, not the comic stuff. No, not the comic stuff, but the more recent, like, how many times did it take them to get a decent Superman movie? Like 4 since like 2000? You know what I mean? How many Batmans have we had? Like, and some of the Batman movies, in the early 2000s with Christian Bale, those were pretty good. But again, guys like the guy who played Joker that ended up unfortunately died. Yeah, Heath Ledger. They swept the acting part of it, and once again, they always do the freaking villains better, which is, there's nothing wrong with that, mind you. You want to have something good about your stuff, but they always do the villain stuff better, just across the board. You know what I mean?
Yeah, villains and anti-heroes are the things that they excel at. When it comes to just straight up heroes, you just have super bland shit like Superman.
Yeah.
Or Wonder Woman, where they're
Wonder Woman turned into a soapbox, so we all know how that goes. So that might be them trying to like write that kind of stuff out and retcon that kind of stuff. I don't know how the Aquaman stuff did. I know a lot of people love Jason Momoa.
For what I know, that movie did good initially, but I then, like, shortly afterwards just basically lost, like, didn't hear anything else about it, period. So it just kind of disappeared.
Yeah,
I don't know if there was a specific reasoning for it.
Yeah, I don't know how, like, the Green Arrow series did, the Flash TV series. I don't know how well that did. I know Supergirl had her own thing. But
Green Arrow is also a member of Checkmate at one point or another.
Right. So,
like, Checkmate actually has a lot of fairly big name characters who join it, and one of its like 5 different iterations.
So there's a lot to draw from. You know what I mean? Almost 100 years of comics. So, and just coming up with new stuff to add to it, because a lot of people have added to it over the years, and James Gunn's going to be one of them. You know what I mean? So, the thing that I'm kind of interested in is to see if we get any kind of like crossover with the Harley verse, like the animated Harley verse, and just kind of like get John Cena as Peacemaker in there, because he does have a history with Kite Man. You know what I mean? So kind of being like like, even if John Cena is like a part of like the live action stuff, it'd be kind of cool to just put him in there, like have him be Peacemaker. You know what I mean? For the foreseeable future kind of deal.
That was one of the things that actually people got kind of upset with the friggin' Suicide Squad isekai about, was the fact that Peacemaker is in that, and apparently they depict him like John Cena's Peacemaker, but they didn't actually get John Cena to voice him.
Yeah, so that's questionable, but it is what it is. Honestly, I thought I'd have more to say about this, but this wrapped up this section of the DCU very well. It's the end of Peacemaker Season 2, but it's also a branching point. You know what I mean? So we're not going to get a concrete end. I know a lot of people have issues with that, but with what Marvel and DC now are doing with this kinds of thing, a lot of these shows are just going to be branching off points into something greater, and you're not going to get like a concrete ending of any kind. It's just going to be a stop sign. You know what I mean?
Well,
and Peacemaker gets out of the car, and you replace it with, the next thing is the movie, and then potentially whatever the next series is called, that kind of thing.
Well, yeah, some of them have more conclusive endings than others. Like, they'll end that particular branch of the story, but it'll still tie into other things. Like, this one is a bit more cliffhangery than most, but it's still just a thing.
I don't think we're going to just leave Peacemaker, John Cena Peacemaker, on Salvation. I keep wanting to say Sanctuary because it makes so much more fucking sense. You know what I mean? The planet is their salvation. I get the freaking pun. You know what I mean? The planet is a salvation for non-metas to I get what they're trying to do, but my God, Sanctuary is just makes way more sense for a place. It's it's just weird. Bothers me. So either way, I can't imagine we're just going to leave, him there and not get anything, like anywhere. You know what I mean? Because then that would constitute, that would warrant being, upset fan base. You telling me that we're really not going to be able to see John Cena? I'll tell you why we can't see John Cena. He's in another dimension. It's kind of like the classic. I saw this guy that was just like, hey, tell everybody I'm going to the party as John Cena, and that's why you won't be able to see me. Freaking props to that one. Like, yeah, I'm coming as John Cena. You guys didn't see me at the party? I was there as John Cena. Couldn't see me. That's like the step up from Jim leaving New Year's early in The Office. I was there. So, yeah.
Go full Quinta. He was always there. You just didn't notice him.
Yeah, he was always there. I don't know what you're talking about. But again, not as much to talk about as I thought we'd have, because I didn't expect this to be as open-ended. I didn't think Peacemaker would be the series to do this. I thought it'd be more like, like Supergirl or Flash or something, like if they were going to do something like this. But
you didn't expect Peacemaker to pull a Loki?
Yeah, so I don't know. I'd say from an objective standpoint, Peacemaker is reasonably on par with the Loki series. I think the Loki series was better from just every standpoint you could ask about. But this is like comparing, like an 88 to a 90. You know what I mean?
Loki also had a lot more thought put into it.
Yeah.
Like, they went into it knowing what they wanted to do. This, like we were talking about towards the end of the reaction, they just kind of threw season 1 of Peacemaker together just as a thing of just kind of riding the high of the Suicide Squad movie doing good and John Cena really liking playing the character and stuff like that. So they just kind of threw a minor budget at it and just kind of threw a story together. Now they've decided they're going to actually do something with it, thus like the retcons, and they put significantly more time and effort into this season of actually establishing things.
Yep. Because let's be real, you guys. Season 1 of Peacemaker, for that kind of production, insanely low budget.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That was like a step above, hey, what can we do for a high school project kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, basically their entire budget in season 1 just went to getting freaking music licensing.
Pretty much. Music licensing and maybe like the CG for the cow and stuff, and some of the special effects like Peacemaker's helmets. The flight scenes with White Dragon, that kind of stuff. You know, and even those were they used camera shenanigans. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they also used a lot more practical effects for that.
Yeah. And
stuff too, like freaking White Dragon's costume and whatnot.
Yep. So, it just is what it is. Sometimes you just kind of, it's kind of like a pilot season where you don't put a lot of money into it and see if, people like it anyway, and then you just move on and you continue. You either move on from it or continue it with a bigger budget. So, yeah, I mean, I expect fun things from this. If you're a fan of the DC verse, just in general, or just anything live action with superheroes, I think objectively this is a solid enough series. Yes, is the writing a little off? Whatever. They're trying to get things connected to the overarching DCU. It's a big pile of madness that it's kind of like untangling, the wires behind your computer. Eventually they'll get it in a line, hopefully. But I mean, could they screw it up? Absolutely. No one's perfect. Yeah. You can't expect perfection just because they throw money at it. You know what I mean? I believe I talked about this in one of the shows we were doing recently for anime, was just because you throw a huge budget at something, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a show, professional sports, just because you spend, $800 million on a player doesn't mean he's going to carry you to the World Series. You know what I mean? Look at the Mets. They didn't make the playoffs. You know what I mean? They had the highest paid guy in the league. Didn't make the playoffs. As big of a Dodger fan as I am, and I bleed blue, and I always will. The people who kiss Shohei Ohtani's ass, I've watched every single one of his playoff games. Has he had his moments? Absolutely. Would I call him a good playoff player to this point in these 2 years? No. He's batting 200. That is garbage for a superstar. You know what I mean? Did he just have one of the greatest games of all time at the end of that freaking LCS? Absolutely. That doesn't make up for the fact that you need to be getting on base. You need to be Kike Hernandez. That's what you're looking for in the playoffs. Shout out to Kike Hernandez. We love you, man. But it's just, you can't throw money at something, and that just because you throw $1 billion at something doesn't mean you're going to win or succeed. It's that simple. Doesn't matter what it is. You know?
Just look at Concord.
Yeah. Crap like that. So you can put as much into it as you want, but you have to make it desirable, likable, you know, palatable, you know, passable, whatever it is. And most importantly, it needs to be fun. It needs to be entertainment. It needs to be entertaining in the case of shows like this. And this, both seasons were entertaining. It had comedy, it had romance, it had decent character development, it added new characters, you know what I mean? Didn't have to have amazing combat and special effects, you know what I mean? That kind of stuff. It just has to be there. There wasn't a lot of meta action. The butterflies were like the most meta stuff that was going on, honestly, in both seasons for the most part. So
yeah, we got kind of teased for Bordeaux with like seeing her cybernetic eye and stuff like that, but reading up on her, she has a lot more ridiculous powers depending on like where you actually fall in the chronology.
Right.
Chronology. This seems like it's supposed to be when she's like only got her like most basic initial cybernetics, but eventually she goes full on like the freaking Terminator 2.
Got it.
The nanite guy.
Yeah. So either way, and again, arguably one of the most meta things in the series is Eagly.
Yeah.
Okay? There's still something going on with that. Prime Eagle. So let's not forget that was seeded. And he also has a good relationship with John. You know? He gave him the half wing, and it's like, hey, thanks for taking care of my talons. Because, kind of like if you have wolves, you gotta brush them and not let their fur get matted. So look at John being the arguably one of the best characters in this series with all the random crap he had to put up with and do. Being distraction, stuff like that.
Even in the Suicide Squad movie, he was one of the better characters. Like, he was really a side character in the Suicide Squad movie, but just like every time they put him in, he's always been one of the more entertaining characters.
Right.
And usually like one of the main people who actually keeps pushing the plot forward.
Yeah. So it is what it is. We got a little bit more of the character side stuff, most people probably assumed that what what Chris was talking about with Harcourt on the party boat was, actual sex, but no, it was just the kiss. You know what I mean? So that can usually have more implications than just banging it out. You know what I mean? So yeah.
A kiss is typically a lot more emotional.
Yeah.
Like, not necessarily not more emotional, but like it's more of like a raw consensual emotion of just like in the moment kind of thing.
Yep. So it was cool that we got that bit. But again, full montage, full moving on to as like a stop sign, bridge gap, that kind of thing to whatever James Gunn is cooking up next. And don't be freaked out about him being non-committal, because it's probably going to be a movie and then into whatever the next series is involving these characters, because I can't imagine that they don't want to continue this, because this had to have been reasonably successful. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Peacemaker's been a big success. And then freaking they put out of their way to put Bordeaux in the main cast now, when, like I said, she's a fairly big character in the comics. We keep building up Abadayo as being the new Waller. Freaking, we seeded an entirely new mythology for Eagly that
Yeah.
needs to be expanded upon.
Yep.
And now we've got the interdimensional shenanigans going on
Right.
with Rick and Ether Keith.
Yep. So, and as kind of like forced as Adebayo's, wife stuff was, I'm glad they took the time to just clean break it. You know what I mean? As opposed to just, so what happened with her wife? Why did we do this? Just, at least they had the heart to heart. They had a very adult, grown-up discussion and said goodbye to each other and moved on. That's how you do it. As much as it sucked, obviously, for both of them, I'm still glad they had that scene and then they just did it because, they established, I believe her name was Key as a character and just a part of her life. And then just to have her just like disappear and just like gone, you know what I mean? It's like, so what happened with her? You know what I mean? Especially after the whole Judo Master thing last week.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad they did that. Just even if nobody cares about her, it's still important to just tie that off and just be done with it and not have like people like wondering like, well, why didn't you do anything with that? This is stupid. Is she still in limbo with her wife? What the hell? You know what I mean? Even if it wasn't important to like really much of anything outside of her like brief backstory, just to get that clean break and have her move on with her dream without any kind of attachment is good for her character. So
yeah, coming to that realization that it's not just other people shitting on your dreams, you're shitting on other people's dreams.
Yep. So good life lesson right there. Gotta appreciate it. So either way, that's all I got for this. I enjoyed this season. I thought the season on a whole was great. It was kind of fun to kind of theorize the Nazi dimension stuff and that just kind of manifesting, even though it got spoiled by a Fortnite emote controversy of all things. I mean, when it's one of your theories and that's what we do, and it just kind of gets confirmed that way, it didn't bother me because once again, spoilers traditionally don't bother me all that much unless somebody like lays out the entire script in front of me. It's like, oh, it was the Nazi dimension. It's like, well, how do we get to the Nazi dimension? I still want to see it. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. It's like, well, we considered that. We knew that was potentially a thing. So we knew that there were interdimensional shenanigans in DC and Marvel, that kind of thing. So
yeah, freaking.
And that's always one of the big ones, or just any kind of interdimensional alternate universe stuff, is a world where the Nazis won. Is one of the big ones.
Yeah, because it's like one of the biggest like turning points in human history is who won the world wars.
Yep.
Like hell, the entire premise of Tanya is just, well, what if Germany didn't lose World War I immediately and the war drug out?
Yep.
But yeah, what was I gonna say before getting into? Oh yeah, as much as the MCU kind of beat them to establishing the multiverse shenanigans cinematically, DC's actually leaned into the multiverse shenanigans way more in the comics for a lot longer. Like they have so many different alternate versions of the characters and weird fucked up dimensions. Like one of the more popular recent ones that people have been like super like obsessive over is freaking the Batman Who Laughs, which is a super like fricked up dimension where Batman ends up killing Joker fairly early on and basically goes insane and takes on a lot of Joker's personality characteristics and becomes a full-on supervillain.
Right.
Which Batman is like up there with Superman and power scaling in DC. So Batman being a supervillain is not conducive for the rest of the dimension being in a good shape.
Yeah. Kind of a problem. So, yeah. At the end of the day, from an objective standpoint, I think this show did everything it needed to. Can we nitpick some stuff? Sure. But I don't do that. We only talk about the major stuff that needs to be pointed out. and we did a couple of those this season, but you know, it was what it was. It's not going to be full on, you know, Shield Hero or freaking just other things that we've criticized in the past, where it's just, oh, look what they're doing again. Holy crap. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
look
really
at this
like
writing, or look what they're doing with this character, or why are we doing this now? You know, obviously, since we have a lot of less DC knowledge and we're picking up more as time goes on, for this kind of thing, it's going to be different because they're expanding and adding to what's already there and writing their own stories now. So
Yeah.
it's just original. So as long as they're paying homage to the original stuff and they're having fun with it and not like getting up on a soapbox like certain series have done, you know, it was fun. It was entertaining. It had, you know, romance, comedy, you know, action. It had lots of stuff. It had the most fictional thing of all time: people being reasonable. So, bravo. I enjoyed it. Looking forward to whatever they do next, and they do a movie or whatever next series, we'll probably do it for the channel. So yeah, I'm glad we got to do a live action thing for the channel. It probably won't be very often, but I think this will be our go-to for any kind of live action anything. This, and then if they do something like, if they continue the Loki series, I'd like to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, we don't typically watch a lot of live action anything, but the comic stuff has kind of wormed its way in one way or another through other stuff that we've been interested in.
Yep. So, again, always going to be John Cena guy, unless, you know, something madness occurs. Same thing with Nathan Fillion. That's always a huge plus for me. Nathan Fillion's a national treasure. Okay? For me. Very least. So, looking forward to potentially more Nathan Fillion stuff in the DC verse as Guy Gardner. That could be fun. So
yeah, we'll have to see where they go with that, because like I mentioned, Guy Gardner is actually a pretty damn major character. Like I was looking into it more because we were questioning it when we first showed up. But he's up there as like one of the like most established Lantern characters. Like he's been around for a long ass time and has a huge history of things that he's done.
Yep. So that could be a fun thing to explore for people that just haven't read the comics. There's a lot of people out there that just only watch the movies and shows and stuff. Exposing people to characters like that is always fun. When it's done right, obviously. So, yep. That's all I got for this. Bravo, James Gunn. Keep it up. We enjoyed it. So, you got anything else, Age?
I don't think so. I'm pretty sure we've covered pretty much everything I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, we hit everything on my notes over here. So, yeah, there you have it. Again, we'll be back with something live action at some point in the future, I'm sure. More than likely comic related, DC, Marvel, whatever. If there's something that massively catches our eye that's live action, we'll think about it. But yeah, this was fun. I enjoyed this. So look forward to more DC stuff in the future, whether it's this, or obviously we've established Kite Man and Harley Quinn if they get any more seasons, which those did very well. So I'd assume we'll get a second season of Kite Man at some point. There's still more they could do with Harley Quinn, especially. I personally, from a personal standpoint, I talked about that on that series, was I hope they get to at least getting to Amazon trained Harley. I think that'd be fun to get to for that series, and that's what they've been kind of leaning into, and getting maybe the end of that series is like her like joining the Justice League as like fully Amazon trained Harley, that kind of thing. That's where that series could leave off, because that's like a big turning point for the Harley Quinn character after she gets her Amazon training and stuff like that we looked into. So
no, they're gonna like the whole series started with her trying to get into the Legion of Doom. So the series is going to end with her trying to get into the Justice League, but ending up in the Justice Gang.
Yeah, that'll show them. So yeah. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, people of YouTube beyond have you're watching. As always, we appreciate you stopping by and hanging out with us here in the dojo for more Peacemaker live action shenanigans. We have a whole new slew of anime coming at you if you're into that. It's on the channel over here. So I'll let Victoria roll the stills of the season like our good buddy Judo Master over here. I still have to eat so many flaming hot Cheetos. Yeah, Cheetos. These are Cheetos. We didn't have enough for this season. Maybe if I started at the beginning of the season, I could have finished the bag, but they were still like 70% of that bag.
Cheetos with an H.
Yeah, Cheetos with an H. So, anyway, I believe this will release immediately right after. I'll have this come out like immediately right after episode 7 on Sunday, just so that we've completely wrapped up Peacemaker, and then we'll start our next set of anime stuff. So that this could just be like its own like big weekend thing, since Sakamoto Days did wrap up and open up a slot for us, and since we're going to need another slot based on everything we're doing at the end of the year here, going into the winter season in early 2026, I'm just going to stick it in that Sunday slot that's open. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this double dose of Peacemaker this week. Have a good morning, evening, afternoon, whatever it is for you. Have a good one. See you next time.
Hey everyone, Victoria here. If you enjoyed the video, please consider pushing those like and subscribe buttons. Your support is greatly appreciated. Thanks again for your time, and we hope to see you again in the future.